What makes Dr. Klaper the happiest doctor around? Well, for one, he congratulates a lot more patients on reversing serious conditions on a regular basis than your average doctor, and has done so for years. If that sounds good to you, keep listening. Then, when the episode is over, pick up a copy of Dr. Klaper's new book, Moving Medicine Forward. Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 137 of Did You Bring the Hummus podcast. I'm Kimberly, your host, and I'm super excited to be here with you today. Did You Bring the Hummus is a podcast for all things vegan. Before we get started, I have one very important question for you. Did you bring the hummus? Today, I am joined by the happiest doctor around, Dr. Michael Klaper. Dr. Klaper is a gifted clinician, internationally recognized teacher, and a speaker on diet and health. In addition to his clinical practice and private consultations with patients, he's a passionate and devoted educator of physicians and other healthcare professionals about the importance of nutrition in clinical practice and integrative medicine. He's also the author of Vegan Nutrition, Pure and Simple, and has produced numerous videos, webinars, and dozens of articles for both scientific journals and the popular press. As a source of inspiration advocating plant-based diets and the end of animal cruelty worldwide, Dr. Klaper contributed to the making of 2 PBS television programs, Food for Thought and the award-winning movie, Diet for a New America. He teaches that health comes from healthy living and is dedicated to the healing and flourishing of all living beings and our planet. This episode is full of the joy Dr. Klaper is known for spreading, while also being full of info to help you live your healthiest life. Hi, Dr. Klaper. Welcome.
Oh, lovely to be with you, Kimberly. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course. Thanks so much for being here. I am super excited to talk to you about your vegan journey, about hummus, of course, but most importantly, about your new book that's coming out soon called Moving Medicine Forward. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. I have learned so much reading this book. And, I went vegetarian back in 2001. I've been vegan for almost 11 years now. So I've read a lot of books by other doctors and other people in the movement and, in the health space. But it's unbelievable how incredible our bodies are and what they're capable of when we fuel them properly.
Absolutely. It's a miracle.
It really is. Before we get to that, though, I'd love if you could share your vegan journey. And as I understand it, it's also kind of your journey as a doctor.
Indeed, the two are intimately related, and no question. So where to begin? I spent my first 16 summers on my uncle's dairy farm in northern Wisconsin. Why? Because every year in the 1950s, the great polio epidemic would roll through the American cities. And my mother had an uncle with a dairy farm in Wisconsin. So every spring when school would get out, the next day we were on a train up to northern Wisconsin. And I spent my first 16 summers milking cows and driving tractors and slinging hay bales, doing what farm work entails. And I learned to love the animals up there. Certainly the cows, the pigs, the chickens each one are wonderful creatures. The chickens would jump in your lap. The cows had these big, beautiful eyes. But there were also the wild animals. Wisconsin in the summers was filled with the foxes and snakes and frogs and eagles and fish. And the natural world was very alive, and I grew to love it. Didn't think twice about eating meat, but never made the association. But I care, but the awareness of the animal certainly was instilled in me early on. A few things happened. I was eating the Western diet. I went to medical school and went into general practice outside of Vancouver, BC. I did my internship at Vancouver General, went into practice. And for the first 7 years of my medical career was an erstwhile GP trying to do the best for my patients and shaking my finger, Joe, you got to take your blood pressure pills, Mary better take more insulin. Yeah, and trying to be a good doctor, practicing standard of care. But despite my best efforts and my sternest finger wagging, my patients were not doing well. They're getting bigger and more obese. Their blood pressure's going up. Their cholesterol's going up. Their blood sugar's going up. I'm prescribing more and more medications. And I felt like a complete failure as a doctor. I got so discouraged that I left general practice, even though I'm a GP in my heart, and decided to become an anesthesiologist. And I spent almost 3 years as an anesthesia resident in Vancouver. And I found myself on the cardiovascular anesthesia service in Vancouver General. And I'm on that service dealing with people's hearts and blood vessels. I spend all day putting people to sleep, watch surgeons open up their chest, open up their coronary arteries in their heart, then pull out these great globs of yellow, greasy gunk called atherosclerosis. It's the oxidized cholesterol and saturated fat they were eating. And basically, it was the fat of the animals these people are eating. There were already studies in the medical journals clearly stating that this is basically in the animal fat. You don't see this in vegan arteries by and large. And then there are also studies saying that many times these atherosclerotic plaques can actually be melted away with a really healthy, low-fat, plant-based diet. Well, my dad died of clogged arteries. I know I've got those genes. And so I had a real interest in changing my diet before it was me on that operating table with that striker saw going up my sternum. I sure didn't want that. All those folks, when they woke up, not very comfortable. So I was getting messages from my left brain to move to a plant-based diet. But it wasn't long after that another message came in from another portal altogether. During my fourth year of medical school at the University of Illinois in Chicago, I spent my Saturday nights in the trauma unit at Big Bad Old Cook County Hospital. And week after week, I saw the worst of what human beings do to each other, the shootings and the stabbings and the clubbings. And Sunday morning, I would leave that trauma unit shaking. And I promised myself if I couldn't get the violence out of the world, I could at least get it out of my own life. And so I took a serious interest in learning how to live a life of minimal violence. We all step on ants as we walk here, but you don't do it intentionally. And you try to minimize the violence in my life. It's a concept. The Sanskrit word is ahimsa. I mean, no harm. And so I became a student of that. I read books by Mahatma Gandhi and Satchidananda and Yogananda and thought I had it down pretty well. Till one night in Vancouver, I'm out for dinner with a fellow anesthesia resident, pontificating about living a life of nonviolence, when he pointed out, Michael, that's all very nice, but notice you're polishing off a porterhouse steak, my friend. We're sitting in the local Cake and Cleaver restaurant, and he says, if you want to get the violence out of your life, you might want to start with that piece of meat on your plate, because, and here was the line, in satisfying your desire for the taste of flesh in your mouth, which is really what this is about, you don't really need it nutritionally, you are paying for the death of the animal and for the next one in line at the slaughterhouse. Well, as soon as he said that, I got defensive. All the old rationales crowded into my brain. Well, the animal's dead already. That's what they raised them for. But before I could get the words out of my mouth, the little voice in my shoulder said, he's right. He's right. And when I went up to pay for the steak dinner, I felt complicit in a crime because I love these animals.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized I was contributing to their death. I certainly was in the milking barn, but I chopped the heads off chickens. You do what you do on a farm, and I realized the inherent violence in a meat-based diet. If there's animal flesh on your plate, some innocent creature paid for it with his life. Well, that I knew between what I was seeing in the operating room about my own arteries and what I knew in my heart that night about causing violence, that was the end of my meat eating. Well, my body loved it. I adopted a plant-based diet and it was stunning. Within 12 weeks, 20 pounds spare tire of fat melted off my waist. My high blood pressure went to normal. My high cholesterol went to normal. And I felt great waking up in a nice lean body every day. And at that point, the light went on, and the lightning bolt hit. Now I know why my patients were all getting more obese and ill and hypertensive and diabetic from what they're freaking running through their arteries every 4 hours. It's the food, it's the food, it's the food.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I realized I didn't want to be an anesthesiologist anymore and spend my career literally putting people to sleep. I'd rather go back to general practice and help them wake up, right? And
Yeah.
so I did, much to the consternation of my parents. I had 6 months to go in my anesthesia residency. Do you know the money you are giving up? But it was no longer in truth. I'm a GP at heart, and I wanted to go back and truly help the patients I couldn't help before. So I left my anesthesia residency, went back to general practice, found some people in my region who could give plant-based cooking lessons, sent my patients who were amenable to it to them. They learned how to boil rice, make oatmeal, and make salad dressings in the blender. Well, those who adopted a plant-based diet underwent the same wonderful changes my body did. They got leaner, their high blood pressure came down, their diabetes got better, their insulin receptors opened up. And I found these medicines for high blood pressure that were told they will take these pills the rest of their life, and insulin for diabetes. Oh, one's on insulin, always on insulin, no one gets on. Not only are these statements not true, as I found out, not only can you get these patients off these medicines, you have to get them off. You have someone you're treating for high blood pressure with potent medications. They lose weight, their arteries open up, their blood pressure goes down. You keep them on those pills that slows their heart down and dilates their arteries more, they'll stand up and pass out on you from low blood pressure and break their face on the way down. The diabetes folks, not only can you stop their insulin, you have to before their blood sugar crashes to their boots. So suddenly medicine became so exciting. My patients are getting healthy right before
Yeah.
medical school never prepared me for people getting healthy, but here it was happening on a daily basis. Well, at this point, there's no going back. You can't unring the bell.
Mm-hmm.
You can't unsee what I've seen here. And so this was 1980. I became vegan in 1981. This is about 1985 and 6. I'm transforming my medical practice. And so over the past, what it was, 40 years, I've been a plant-based physician. And like I tell the medical students, I'm the happiest doctor I know. My patients get healthy. You can become the healthiest doctor you know if you get your patients familiar with a plant-strong diet.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, the maraschino cherry on the Sunday here, vegan ice cream, vegan Sunday. Um, as I'm well into my medical career and reversing these chronic lethal diseases, and seeing this powerful clinical tool, it doesn't cost anything to order
Mm-hmm.
chili instead of the beef chili, like $1,000 a month Ozempic. These people get lean, eating whole plant foods. I'm saying, somebody should tell the medical students this.
Mm.
Get to them early in their medical education before pharmacosclerosis sets into their brains and they think that drugs and surgery are the only treatment. Somebody should tell the medical students this. And that little voice on my shoulder said, How about you, Doc?
Yep.
And so for the past 4 years, we've been going to the nation's medical schools and delivering this message. I've got a powerful slide presentation, what I wish I learned in medical school about nutrition. I wish someone had told me that high blood pressure is reversible. I wish someone had told me diabetes is reversible. Well, I explained to them that not only are these conditions reversible, but here's the scientific mechanism. Here's why the plant-based diet unclogs your insulin receptors and reverses type 2 diabetes. Here's why a plant-based diet will lower high blood pressure. Well, the medical students are hungry, so to speak, if you will, for this information. I tell them, in medical school, you want to learn how to use those medical tools. You want to use diuretics to make edema go away and antibiotics to make pneumonia go away. This is the most powerful tool you will ever wield, because every day in clinic, I get to lean across the desk to my new patients and say words that my conventionally trained colleagues never get to say. I'd like to get rid of your diabetes. I'd like to get rid of your high blood pressure. I'd like to reverse your lupus. And the thought that you can offer people a doorway into a healthy life again, the patients are very grateful. Not everybody is willing to do it, but those who are get rewarded big time.
Yeah.
So, the word doctor comes from the same Latin root as doctrine, teacher. We're basically teachers. And so I've been teaching the medical students, I've been teaching my patients. And as I said, I'm the happiest doc I know. And of course, I became vegan along the way. How can you not? Once you understand the truth of the animal, because once I understood what eating animals does, I read John Robbins' book, Diet for New America, where he made the connection between what our meat-based diet is doing to 80 billion of these wonderful creatures every year to get their throats cut because we like the way their flesh tastes, not because we need it. And what it's doing to planet Earth is why we're cutting down the forests, why we're sucking the rivers dry. It's why the soils are eroding off corn and soybean fields. And if we go plant-based as a species, this reverses. The trees come back. As trees grow, they take carbon dioxide out of the air, turn into solid wood. They reverse global warming. Everyone heals. People, planets, animals. So again, of course, I'm a plant-based doctor. I'm vegan. Of course, you wind up vegan. Where else? How can you not with this process?
I love that. And, what a hopeful message and a beautiful message. And I was thinking as you're walking through the story about some of the excerpts in your book where you talked to your patients who had started following this plant-based diet, but they were on those intense medications, and they would call you and be like, Doc, I don't know. I don't feel well. And I'm standing up and I'm feeling dizzy. And you're like, all right, cut the medicine in half, call me in 3 days. And then they go through this process, and then they call you and they're like, okay, I don't know, but I'm feeling great. Things are changing. And you say to them, congratulations, you have cured yourself of diabetes or high blood pressure. And what an incredible conversation to have with your doctor after, like you said, so many people before, I'm sure, had told them, oh, that's just too bad. Or, oh, everybody in our family has that. Or, of course you were going to get that. Look at what you're doing. And what's interesting is that sometimes when someone has an ailment, someone in their life might say, well, of course you're dealing with that. Look at how you eat. But they don't make the actual connection to change, or they don't know how they can change, because this idea of eating plants is so foreign, here in this country and around the world in various areas. It's like, what do you mean I'm going to eat meals without animals in it? That's how we evolved. That's how humans got to where we are, eating animals. And when you look back, that is not the truth, and not the case that it was you talk about keto and paleo diets too, and the paleo people well, I'm eating like a caveman. You're like, are you though?
Absolutely. The average life of the caveman was in their 40s. There was nothing to brag about eating the caveman style. But even back then, we were starch eaters back then. I mean, I mean, our anatomy and our physiology clearly tells us that we are plant-eating hominids, like our gorilla cousins up in the trees. We've got, small mouths with flat, grinding molar teeth and jaw joints that allows chewing a rotary motion for chewing roots and tubers and berries, not big gaping mouths with
Mhm.
hinge joints and big fangs for tearing flesh. We have fingers on our hands, not claws. And if you need any more validation, the enzymes in our saliva, the first of our digestive powers that contact our food, they're starch digesting enzymes or
Mm.
salivary amylase for digesting starch. If that is not a message from the universe about what our diet is supposed to be, good heavens. Yeah, and the truth is, despite this big caveman myth that every Neanderthal had a mastodon in the freezer and spent all day eating mammoth meat, my caveman.
Right.
The opposite is true. First of all, most hunts back then were unsuccessful. Most time, the hunting guys came back empty-handed. If they did drag a carcass into a camp, they had no refrigeration. It rotted over a few days and became toxic. Uh, the reality is that most of the calories um, that were brought into the Paleolithic camp were gathered by the women who spent all day digging up starchy roots and tubers and gathering edible grasses and berries, nuts, etc., which our diet is which our anatomy is very adequate to chew up and swallow. Yeah, people they say, with the invention of fire, we're able to roast our meat. Um, Maybe that's true, but also with the advent of fire, one thing we're able to do is boil water. And
Mm.
once you can boil water, you put those starchy roots and tubers there, and suddenly they become softer, and everybody can eat a lot more calories. And so, the that whole idea of the flesh-eating caveman is certainly is not based on science. And one reason we know that is when we look at the fossilized fecal droppings. Yes, those fossilized from the Pleistocene folks, they're huge. These folks pass these large, massive stools. You can only do that if you're eating lots of plant fiber.
Mm.
And so clearly, we've been plant eating creatures for eons. And but can you get enough protein? Ask any gorilla. They build these magnificent muscular bodies by shoveling leaves and fruits and vegetation into their mouths all day. I've never had a gorilla or a giraffe in the office. Doctor, I can't keep my hands off those cheeseburgers. None of the most powerful animals on planet are elephants and buffaloes. They grow these magnificent muscular bodies on plant foods only.
Mhm.
So I tell you, relax. There's plenty of protein. The beans and peas and chickpeas and lentils and nuts and seeds and grains, they're all full of protein. You can't eat 3 meals a day, 2,500 calories of whole plant foods. Can't. That's a key caveat here. You
Mhm.
can't do this on granola bars and energy drinks. You got to
Right.
talk about whole plant foods. Yeah, if you can't help but getting 60, 70, 80 grams of high grade protein with those 3 meals. So, everybody relax, eat plants. Your arteries will thank you. The animals will thank you. The earth will thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, lay your head on the pillow at night knowing you haven't contributed to the death of any of these wonderful creatures either, which is one of the best reasons I enjoy being vegan.
Yeah, me too. And for so long, my focus, so I went vegetarian. And when I look back now, I'm like, how did you not go vegan back then? Because my catalyst was the story of a downed cow. And so the dairy industry was very much in my face at the time. But for whatever reason, I went vegetarian first. But I had like removed all like animal products from my life except for like cheese. I at one point actually considered myself a cheeseitarian because I didn't really know how to cook. I was still learning. And so I ate a lot of cheese. But I had like replaced all of like leather shoes. And so it really was just, I was really holding on to this cheese thing. And then I went vegan, and my thought process was so much of, as long as it's not animal products, It doesn't matter. So, if to me, it's like any health benefits I might get from this are cool, but it's not my purpose. And so I definitely leaned into all of the convenience foods and the packaged stuff and really just really enjoying that.
Tasty stuff. Oh, it tastes great. Yeah.
And it's really wonderful that we have so many things to enjoy. But it took me so long, like very recently, to finally look at myself and go, okay, Kimberly, like we've got to get on this, like eating foods I've made at home from scratch, caring for myself in the same way that I've been caring for the animals for these 20 plus years. So how do you, when you're with a patient of yours, kind of like me, where it's very much like I'm not thinking about my health at all, but you can see that things are happening. Like I've been in a larger body for a long time, and it's because of, the excess calories and all those things that I've been consuming, not thinking about what all of this is doing to my body. So how do you, what's that conversation you have with a patient like that to kind of help them see there's another way where you can still be kind to the animals that mean so much to you while also being really kind to yourself?
Wow. So are we talking about just Joe meat and potatoes guy in my office for the first time who's facing that transition? Or are we talking about the person who became vegan but still eating lots of processed stuff? Who are we talking to
Oh,
here?
yeah, that would be a different approach. Let's
Yes.
talk to the vegan first, who's
All
eating
right.
all the junky foods.
Sure. Uh, well, usually they're in my office because they're frustrated. I mean, I've been vegan for 2 years and I'm still carrying all this weight around with me. What's going on?
Mm.
And this, I clearly can in my appointment calendar. This person needs a good hour of discussion about this very important topic, and I commend them. Bless you for whatever reason you became vegan for the animals, for the earth, for your health. Wonderful. You're ahead of the game here, and you'll be rewarded down the road here. So I and tell them how right they are for and how much they've reduced their risk of many bad diseases here, even though they're carrying this extra weight. They're not running oxidized cholesterol through their arteries, or they're lower risk for heart disease. They're not spewing cooked carcinogens that always form on the surface of meats when you cook it. They're not smearing that on their colon 3 times a day. They're less risk for colon cancer. They're ahead of the game despite their weight. So I really commend them for that. But meanwhile, they're frustrated here. So the most important thing is you have to operate from real world data from them. So I have them as they're coming into the office. Before they come in, I want them to keep at least a 3-day, preferably a 5-day food diary. I want to know actually what is going in their mouth over the course of 5 days. And I'm looking for several areas where things could be improved, both in the timing of the food, but certainly in the quality of the food. So I know physiologically that if I take an overweight vegan and don't bridle, but I put them on a diet of steamed kale only. All right, for 21 days, and they will lose a bunch of weight. They're going to come back. The calorie density of that is so low. They're filling their belly up with fiber and water, basically, where it has all zip calories there. And the body's going to burn off body fat, okay? And those laws of thermodynamics work for everybody. So knowing that there's nothing genetically at fault deep down in there, though there are genetic influences we will talk about, but just the physiology. If I can get them on a daily basis, keeping that belly full of high fiber, high water content, whole vegetables, whole fruits, they're going to make progress. Now, in that, there's some things for this particular person, for the folks, and who's ever listening here, if you're vegan, you're already lean. You can put it on mute. I don't want you worrying about this or freaking yourself out. This does not apply to you. This is for the people who are stuck with extra weight they want to get rid of. So I go through a 5-day food diary, and I'm looking for hidden oils and fats that are going to be in the processed foods. Given the vegan cream cheese like that, I'll Google it, I'll pull up the label and turn my laptop around and go through the ingredients here, and I point out the soy oil and the safflower oil, etc. I look for the hidden fats that are in the everything from the veggie burgers to the salad dressings to the various and certainly baked goods, which gets us around to a little bit of science here, but it's important for these folks to understand. And that's this. Our body can burn basically two kinds of fuel that comes in our diet. Carbohydrates, we are sugar-burning creatures. We burn glucose in our mitochondria preferentially. But also, if we can't get a hold of carbohydrate, we can burn fats. And yes, that can be a serviceable fuel. So, and we're always burning. Your muscles are moving right now. I'm talking to you, moving my hands from the carbohydrates that I've eaten that are stored in my muscles that I'm burning. Okay, for energy, it's stored in the muscles in a form called glycogen. And so that's how carbohydrates fuel us. But also, there's a little bit of fat in my abdomen, a little bit under the skin. We're always burning a little bit of fat in the background. That's what keeps our body temperature up. So we, especially at night, when we're not generating heat from muscular movement, you don't want your body temperature to crash while you're sleeping. So the body burns fat to keep the body temperature up. So we're always burning a combination of sugars and fats. Cool. Okay. Now, as long as you're eating a high carbohydrate diet, whole grains, whole potatoes, etc., your body can handle that and doesn't turn it into fat. You basically burn the calories that you take in. And if you take in more than you need, by and large, if it hasn't been a high-fat diet, if you eat some potatoes or rice in the afternoon, most of those calories go into your muscles as glycogen to fuel muscle movement. And if you've got extra calories left over, mostly your blood temperature will go up a quarter degree while you're sleeping. You'll stick your foot out from under the covers, and you'll disperse that extra energy as heat to the air. It won't turn into body fat. But if you eat those sugars and fats at the same time, let's say, ice cream is sugar and fat. That's what the stuff is. Okay. Let's try bacon and non-vegan, but we'll try vegan ice cream. Okay, and so that's sugar and fat. The cashews oil are usually the fat, and the sugar is cane sugar, whatever. When sugar and fat come into the bloodstream at the same time, the body said, sugar, fat, I'll burn that sugar now. I'll store that fat for later. This is called oxidative priority. The priority is to burn the sugar first. And so it's that fat-sugar combination. If you're eating a veggie burger and fries, you will store you'll burn the sugar in the fries and the bun. You will store the fat, the avocado oil, whatever, in the veggie burger. French fries, okay? Even at McDonald's, I have vegans go to McDonald's. Well, French fries are vegan. Well, now they're using beef tallow. They're not really. But even before that, you will burn the sugar in the starchy potato, but you'll store the fat from the fryer oil, which is really what French fries are full of. So it's that fat-sugar combo that sticks to you. Peanut butter and almond butter and jelly sandwich. You're going to burn the sugar in the jelly and the bread. You're going to store the fat in the almond oil. So the second thing I would, besides looking for hidden fats, I would go through everything the person put in their mouth and looking for that fat-sugar combo. And finally, not to geek everybody out, it doesn't mean you can never have nuts or anything or avocados, but you don't want to eat it with sugars at the same time. In other words, have your starchy potatoes, but don't put earth balance margarine on your baked potato. You're creating that sugar fat combo. Put a nice tomato salsa on that potato. So eat the starches and sugars on their own. Wait at least 2, but preferably 4 hours for your body to metabolize those sugars. Insulin goes up and down within 2 hours. By 4 hours, it's out of your system. Then, if you want to have a salad in the evening with a walnut dressing on it, cool. Okay, the fat will not stick to you. The veggie poured on your broccoli. These are low sugar vegetables there. So if you're trying to lose weight, and again, if you're already at a good weight, don't drive yourself nuts over this. But you can, if you're going to be something obviously fatty, avocados, nuts, flax seeds, or whatever, you may want to not put it on starchy foods there. Now, I know a lot of people added some flax seeds to their oatmeal in the morning. Yeah, it might contribute this much to keeping you stuck there. So I look for those fat sugar combos and I educate the person about that. And finally, the timing. I used to get up every morning and head to the kitchen and shovel down a big bowl of oatmeal with maple syrup on it usually. Well, it's vegan, and maybe even some vegan butter on it or whatever. And I was walking around at 215 pounds, way too much for me. So in recent months, well, years now, I've listened to especially working at True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, I've seen what the fasting state does for our metabolism. And so even though I've done long water fasts, what I came to learn about the physiology of fasting is if you're not eating anything, especially carbohydrates, for a minimum of 12 hours, but more 14 or 16 hours. And let's say how does that work? Well, you had dinner and you stopped eating. You had early dinner, stopped eating at 6. By 6 the next morning, you went to sleep. There's 12 hours you haven't eaten. And if you can hold off till 10 or 11 in the morning, well, that's a 14, 16-hour fast you've done. By hour 16, or 15, so your body is already gearing up for a long fast. It's starting to burn fats. It's starting to do this process of autophagy where it starts cleaning out cellular debris and antioxidants get produced. You're dipping your toe into the prolonged fasting state, and it helps us. It cleanses us on a tissue level. And so I tell my folks in general, but certainly those who are trying to lose weight, when you get up in the morning, you don't have to run to the kitchen and start shoveling a bunch of sugars and starches into your mouth there. Well, if you're not hungry, don't eat. Just have a glass of water. You can have a cup of mint tea if you'd like. Wait till you get growly hungry, and you'll probably find that doesn't happen until 10 or 11 in the morning. Breakfast, the most important meal of the day. Not if you're not hungry, and not if you really don't want to do that. So it's okay not to do it. If you are fully famished, okay, have a cantaloupe or have some melon chunks or whatever. That's pretty easy to digest. And so I have my first meal, my wife and I, we start at midday, about noon. We have a big salad going in the fridge all the time. You can buy salad pre-made nowadays in the store. You open up a big tub of it, throw it in a silver bowl there, and dice up a tomato and a carrot and some green pepper. You got a salad. And it takes 2 minutes. And so we keep that in the fridge. So out comes a big helping of salad. Then we'll open up a can of cannelloni beans or black bean, put it on the salad there, and some balsamic vinegar, some nutritional yeast, toss it up. up, whoa, we got a meal. And so that's our first meal of the day, midday meal. And that gets us through till about 4 in the afternoon. Then we have our dinner, and it's a starch. It's potatoes or quinoa or millet or occasional low glycemic pasta with tomato sauce on it. Always have steamed greens. We have steamed greens every day. We wear out our vegetable steamers, kale, broccoli, we eat a lot of those. And green and yellow are the two best colors. And so, always try to have something yellow, sweet potatoes, squash, yams, or whatever, for the carotenes and the antioxidants. So that's dinner. My wife makes a dynamite Buddha bowl. I'll take a big bowl, we'll line it with a layer of quinoa, throw in our greens, put on some tahini dressing, a little sauerkraut, a little kimchi on that. Yay. And that takes us to about 6 in the evening. And then, as Dr. Furman says, the restaurant's closed. Stay out of the kitchen. Let your body start digesting that. If you are munching, because we usually eat sweets in the evening, and it's just not a good idea to do that. Nighttime eating is a real problem if you're trying to lose weight. It makes you put out a gush of insulin, makes you store calories. So have a cup of mint tea in the evening or whatever. Have a non-sugary just to entertain your tongue and go to bed already. We're in bed by 9:30 these days, and so that's how we conduct our eating day. I'm never really hungry, so I've pretty much stopped snacking. And these two main meals, the salad and the beans in the afternoon, and the hot meal in the evening. We have a very active instant pot. We almost always have a pot of really hearty vegetable stew or soup or chili or curries, and so we'll have a big bowl of that there. And we don't lack for substance or flavor in our life at all as vegans. And but this is mostly a high water content, high fiber food stream. We're filling our bellies up really with fiber and water. What's missing? There's no flour products. We're not eating cookies, cakes, no breads. By the way, all baked goods, everything that comes from a bakery, by definition, is sugar and fat. There is sugar, pastry flour, and sugar, but what's holding that pastry flour? There's some fat in the bakery. It's egg yolk or lard or shortening or whatever. Baked goods are fat and sugar. Okay, and flour products, you get rid of them. The really concentrated foods, the nut butters and the dried fruits, they're fine if you're a skinny vegan to have some, but if you're trying to lose weight, stay away from the nut butters and the dried fruits. They'll keep you stuck. And those aren't in our diet. We use no oil in cooking. We have friends who love Mediterranean diets. We have a little bit of olive oil in a spray bottle, and when they come over, we'll put a little spray of olive oil on the salad. That's it. We don't cook with it. So what other things have dropped out of our life? And we try to minimize restaurant meals. We love eating out of restaurant, but the truth is restaurant food is full of salt and sugar and fat. That's why it tastes good. But usually I walk out of the restaurant saying, I'm sorry, I ate this meal here. And so we're cheaper to eat at home. So minimize those. And there's an art to restaurant ordering, and we can talk about that to minimize the damage. You can tell the waiter, the wait person, the less fat, the better, but less oil, the better, etc. But stay at restaurants as much as you can. But anyway, keep that high fiber, high water content, fresh, whole vegetable food stream going, and you wind up lean. It may take 12, 16 months, but I guarantee that the laws of physics will work for you too, or for anyone like this.
Yeah.
So that's what I would tell them.
Thank you for that. One of the things from your book that I've pulled out of it is a true new, or maybe I don't think I ever realized, an appreciation for my liver and like the amazing little organ that this is. And now I was thinking, because the way you describe it is how the food stream, everything we're bringing in is bathing our liver in whatever it is. And oh my goodness, when I read that, I had to stop with the book like open, and I just was like, Liver, I am so sorry. Just like you said about the restaurant food. I cannot believe what I have done to you, what I have bathed you in, thinking about my 20s, going out to the bar, just all the things I've done to this poor powerhouse that continues to do all the work.
Absolutely. We ought to declare Be Kind to Liver Week here and send a Valentine to your liver for all the good
Yeah.
work it's done. But the good news is, before you or anyone else despairs, the liver is the champion organ in the body for repairing itself. It's stunning how quickly these badly damaged livers, unless they're all full of fibrous tissue from cirrhosis, if you just have a fatty liver, it is completely reversible. Within weeks, that liver will turn back into normal liver. Even from alcohol, from fatty foods. So yes, be kind to your liver, but don't despair if you get that diagnosis of fatty liver, whatever. It's a call to action. Start running that healthy whole food stream to that liver, and it'll turn back into a normal liver and still love you.
Yeah. And another thing is that children are are at risk for now, like the way that we have been feeding our younger generation. I had heard like a couple of years ago about like children who are in kindergarten having, the starting of blockages in their heart. And now to read in your book about how they also are at risk for this non-alcohol fatty liver. And so what's like one thing that you want people who care for children to know about, like what they can do to really care for them?
Oh, thank you for that. Absolutely. I was really taken aback at a medical conference when a pediatrician came up to me after I gave my talk on cholesterol and artery disease. He says, doctor, by the way, atherosclerosis, the biggest killer of Americans, it's a pediatric disease.
Yikes.
Really? Yes. He said, well, as you mentioned, they do autopsies in children killed in car accidents. And already at age 9 and 10, when you look at their aortas, the main blood vessel in the body, already they've got fatty streaks in the walls of the aortas from the pizzas and the burgers and the fried chicken and the Cokes and the fat sugar that they're eating. And we're seeing childhood obesity, type 2 diabetes. We no longer talk about juvenile diabetes. We've seen it in kids. So absolutely, this is a pediatric disease. So if you're serious about loving these children, then you got to protect them and understand the threat that the Western fast food diet presents to these children short term as they become obese and diabetic, and long term they're certainly going to be saddled with these. To have a stroke at age 30, to have a breast cancer at age 35. Good heavens, how would you wish that on a young person? So the best thing to do is understand the threat that these foods, these unnatural food-like substances really present to the child, and then make it very clear why none of those foods are going to be coming into your daycare, your kindergarten, your child's friend's house. They're coming over to visit you, and then the second thing, and explain very clearly these are not healthy foods for you, and then set a good example. And now, kids will eat fruit if it's all cut up and presented to them. They'll eat chunks of apple and chunks of mango and grapes. But if you give them a whole apple, they'll walk away from it. But if you make it really inviting, they'll eat it. And especially if they see you eating it, adult. If you're setting an example, oh, this is delicious. Oh, we eat this every day. The kids will get that. And so now lay down the rules lovingly and set a good example. And know that your discipline is a favor to them.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So the purpose of the book, from what I'm getting, is, well, it's titled Moving Medicine Forward: What More Doctors Should Know About Nutrition and How It Can Save Your Life. So reading through this book, I see it from two perspectives. One, how doctors can realize that they've really missed out on the nutrition piece of caring for another person, and how a regular person like me can read this book and come away with a new appreciation for certain organs in her body, but also really understanding how to better care for myself. So, how, from a doctor's perspective, speaking to other doctors, how do you move medicine forward? Because the consumption of animal products is so normal that doctors are not having those conversations with their patients, and it's just like, and they're eating that way too.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's the mountain that we're faced with trying to scale here. And again, for 4 years, our nonprofit organization, Moving Medicine Forward, has been educating the students directly, and we're trying, like Johnny Appleseed, scattering these seeds. We're trying to create a new generation of young physicians who are nutritionally awakened, understand that the diseases that in their patients that they're going to spend the majority of their careers treating is from what their patients are eating, and that these are nutrition-based diseases. And I refer them to our website, movingmedforward.org, where they can see my video, the presentation, what I wish I learned in medical school about nutrition, to educate these individual doctors. But the medical schools themselves and the National Board of Medical Examiners, who has up to this point not been asking questions about nutrition on their exams, those are the biggest obstacles. How can we get nutrition education interwoven into standard medical education has been the holy grail that we've been working on. Well, when you're pursuing a mission with pure heart and all your energy, there's 1,000 unseen hands that come to your aid here, and help can come from the most unexpected quarters. And I woke up today reading, someone, 3 or 4 people sent me this notice from the Health and Human Services Department, Honorable Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who I had zero hope for as far as being a positive force who for public health, who is all for beef tallow and ending the war on saturated fat and all these anti-science stances. It came out very boldly, convened a conference in Washington, D.C. yesterday, and of the heads of medical schools, 53 American medical schools heads showed up, along with the head of the FDA. Dr. Oz was there, and they pledged to incorporate at least 40 hours of nutrition education into their medical school curriculum. And there's 160 medical schools in America. This 50 is a third of them. This was no small matter. This is huge, because if the dominoes will start to fall. If Kennedy sees smart, he said, you can eat. We're not telling you, the government's not telling you what to teach. You guys develop your own nutrition curriculum, but be teaching your students all 4 years about the importance of their patient's diet. Hallelujah! The heavens and the angels opened up, started singing. Now the question, of course, as a fellow vegan, is what are they going to be teaching?
That was going to be my question.
Of course. And is this all going to be carnivore propaganda? But if they truly are going to be evidence-based, science-based,
right?
Show me the money, show me long-term studies that people eat a carnivore diet 3 times a day for 20 years, they reverse their heart disease. There are not going to be any such studies. In fact, they're going to be higher risk of colon cancer, higher risk of vascular dementia, higher risk of autoimmune disease from leaky gut from the endotoxin. It's a diet of death, and that will show up. There are plenty of studies showing that a plant-strong diet will reverse these diseases. So as the mission of our Moving Medicine Forward organization has now become, we have a list of those 53 schools, and we are going to be writing herd on all of them. We want them to send us the curriculum that they are developing. We're going to look for those who are strongly plant-based and cheer them on. Those folks with a high animal bias will hear from us and with studies and alternative ways of looking at the issue. And we're going to try and steer this ocean liner to get these young medical students hearing about the power of a plant-strong diet to reverse these diseases. Probably not going to be 100% vegan. And the truth is that people eat small amounts of meat once a week, twice a week. It probably is not going to be their detriment. But nobody should be eating animal flesh 3 times a day. And we're going to make that real clear. It's not a healthy diet for humans to pursue by a long shot. So we're excited. It's a new era of medicine is dawning. We've just got to stay with our eyes on the prize here and make sure that the plant strong side of nutrition is represented fully in these nutrition programs. So, and it's podcasts like yours and all the podcasters that I appear on. You guys are what's helping society push. You make, by bringing this up, you put it in people's heads to talk to their doctors about this, to talk to their neighbors about, to their family members about, and it's that pressure that's been building that's gotten Mr. Kennedy to utter these words. So you educators, you communicators are practicing a high grade of medicine here, and it's great to have you as a colleague. I'm gonna have to go soon. I've got another podcast right behind you.
Yeah, I was just about to say thank you so much. I wish I could talk to you for another 4 hours, but I've got one more question for you before you go. Yeah. How does hummus show up in your life?
I was on the Holistic Holiday at Sea cruise with Juliana Haver. And Juliana Haver, registered dietitian, vegan dietitian, and she looked out and she did a whole workshop on hummus. And she said, "I've come to the conclusion hummus should be its own food group."
Yes,
and she said that's right, because I love hummus. I love hummus sandwiches. It was back in the late 1970s. I was following gurus and ashrams and all stuff, and in the various Asian influenced spiritual groups, there was hummus on pita bread. And then we would go out to Mediterranean restaurants, and there would be again, and talk about love at first bite. It's so delicious, so satisfying. Back in the 70s, as part of my spiritual journey, hummus came right alongside, and we've been faithful friends and spiritual journeyers ever since.
What a fantastic story. What a great way to end this conversation. Dr. Klaper, thank you so, so much for being here with me today. Links to buy the book and to visit your website and any social media that you guys have going will be in the show notes so people can connect with you in all the different ways and join us on this journey of moving medicine forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back. I had so much fun chatting with Dr. Klaper. I appreciate the warmth and heart he brings to these conversations about health and medicine. To connect with Dr. Klaper, visit his website, drklaper.com. Follow him on Instagram at Dr. Klaper, on Facebook at Michael Klaper MD, and LinkedIn at Michael Klaper MD. Also on YouTube at Dr. Klaper. As always, the links will be in the show notes so you can click right in and get right there. I hope you've found this episode helpful and inspiring. Please subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're loving it, please give Did You Bring the Hummus a 5-star rating and leave a review. It's an easy way to keep supporting the show. Be sure to share these episodes with your friends. If you're finding something good here, they will too. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Did You Bring the Hummus, and visit my website, didyouBringTheHummus.com, for more information about me, updates on what I'm working on, new podcast episodes, and all things vegan. Tune in next time for my interview with activist Gail Eisnitz discussing her latest book, Out of Sight. Thanks for listening.